Hey folks, Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a round 13 summary of the Global War 1939 playtest series. Just want to talk about a quick housekeeping thing that, this game is very challenging to play solo, and something that I would have done as the American player if I was just playing America. However, when I'm thinking about what Germany's going to do and what Japan's going to do and all of these things, and that would have been last turn, they would have built a naval base here in Panama, and they had all these naval transports sitting here, and they would have come down, and they also would have brought, it would have taken 2 turns, their navy down to the Panama Canal. So they've still got a couple transports here. The Commonwealth or the Canadians also would have sent their transports. So there's a couple battleships here, a couple destroyers, a torpedo boat, and a submarine. They got ahead to the Pacific. Now, this game has been a game of cat and mouse the last few rounds, and currently the Axis still have 12 victory points. However, there's a little wrinkles that still could play out in the remaining 2 rounds. So when you're playing a round like this, you really have to project, if you're trying to end the game by, say, turn 15, what you need to purchase that's going to have a sort of final showdown. What can make it and what can't make it, and what you need to start purchasing for defense. So we'll get into that. First, we may as well go over on the Pacific theater. So all the naval transports for the United States that were on eastern seaboard went to the Panama Canal at the end of the U.S. turn, and now they are sitting off of San Francisco. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 naval transports. And the Allies debated whether or not, now this Commonwealth fleet and the American fleet, it's all in Sea Zone 133 off of San Francisco, and America does not have quite enough yet to load those transports, and they wanted to block this sea zone here. However, if they did, the Japanese would have been able to wipe them out with all of their aircraft, and it would have been not a very good proposition for the Allies. So they had to sit back and sort of rearm and regather. Now, this is a winning situation for the Japanese, because they consolidated all of their naval transports and their sort of all of their fleet, which isn't very big. However, they are going to be able to reinforce next turn Hawaii with another 7 ground units and all of their aircraft if they choose. And they're also going to be able to build a fortification there. And so that tells me if the United States has 1 or 2 more builds, they're not going to be able to make enough to hit Hawaii. Now, Japan, look at all these Zero fighters. Now, the Zeros, if you recall, they do have an extra point of movement. So that all of these aircraft that are sitting here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 Zeros, and there's another 3 here, are all going to be sitting in Hawaii next turn, in addition to these other 3 aircraft that are sitting there. So it's a day late and $1 short for the Americans. And what the Japanese could do is also take Midway and Johnson, which would take away a landing spot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for all of the medium bombers. So take them out of the equation. Now, the Commonwealth could try and take them back, but those are resources now that are not going to be used to be capturing Hawaii. So I think Hawaii is safe. Now, the play for Leningrad and Moscow. Moscow is safe, and there's currently still about 25 units sitting in Stalingrad. Now, if the Axis are able to take Stalingrad, which they're going to try their best, they are going to probably secure their victory by doing so. Now, these are the German forces that are currently sitting in Moscow, 2 spaces away. There's a bunch of armor. There's like maybe 12 or 13 armor, and a bunch of fast movers, some SS Panzer Grenadiers. There's 8 of those, and they can tow artillery, and they've got the complement of 3 veteran fighters, a medium and heavy bomber. And the British, the Russians actually, they've been very lucky receiving their Lend-Lease, so they decided to build a minor IC in Stalingrad and start pumping units there. So next turn, if they choose, they could build a fortification there, and they have 1 armor that's blitzed from, or came across from Novosibirsk, that will be able to reinforce. So that is happening there. Now this is the point of the game where some of the battles that were not as important, basically, you know, Japan has stopped. What I mean by that is there's no victory points on this side of the map. So the British did come down here and retake Szechuan from there was a game of ping pong, so the Chinese cavalry died, and then the British came in and killed the Japanese units. Now, why are the British headed this way? Well, they want to make sure that Russia does not lose its capital, because now Russia is starting to be able to put units into Leningrad. So it's a matter of keeping these fast-moving Japanese units a turn or 2 away from Novosibirsk. And the Russians are starting to head east here in the northern territory of Russia. All these money islands now appear to be safe. The Commonwealth, or the Australians, built 2 naval transports here, hopefully making their way up to San Francisco. Now, the Canadians have been building a lot of armor and infantry, and they are all sort of along the western coast. So if there's only 1 naval transport here for the Commonwealth, so they need to get some there. And if they're able to, they might have a shot at Hawaii. However, that is, I think, a day late and $1 short. The British also, you know, are going to be able to drop off some more units here. Now, why this territory in the Caucasus is critical, now there's currently about 6 or 7 units there, is because if the Germans come down into Kharkov and it's, say, round 13 or round 14 or round 15, the British can counterattack and hit them, and they still have the complement of their whole air force and all of these units coming up, plus all the units they're able to load on these naval transports, which should be about 8. And they also built a couple air transports, some C-47 air transports, and a couple airborne who are going to be able to make their way to Stalingrad. So I don't know how that battle is going to go. It might depend on who has the last move, but it's going to be very close. Now over here on the Western European front, some very interesting. Now Hilltop made a comment about, you know, what should the Allies do? The Allies don't attack. That's what the Axis want. So there's been a sort of a game of ping pong happening here in Reims, and the Germans were worried about Italy falling. So currently sitting here in Rome is still these 13, you know, armor, a couple trains, 7 German infantry, and 28 Italian infantry. So Rome is safe, maybe a little bit too safe, and all of these German fast movers are sitting in turn. So why that might be key is because if the Allies decide to take a poke, they to take Reims with authority, which they did, they can then take a poke at Western Germany and take a poke at Berlin if they choose. And that's what they've decided to do. Now, currently, all of these units sitting in Italy will not be able to reinforce Western Germany next turn. Now, Germany does have 28 infantry, or 29 infantry, 1 SS, paratrooper, and about 4 armor sitting in Western Germany. So that is not enough to fend off this Allied combined force. Now, the French have been building 3 armor a turn the last couple turns, so they have a little bit of a force happening now. And the Americans, even though they haven't been sending units there, whoops, why does this always happen? They still have about 27 tanks. 27 tanks and about probably 40 infantry and 1 fighter, and the British have a substantial force as well. So there is a force there to capture Berlin, which could happen. However, might be at the expense of losing Paris, which do they really care about now? So this is what the Italians from Turin, they came in heavy to Marseille, and that's all that's left there is 3 French armor sitting in Paris and 6 American units sitting in Bordeaux, and this whole stack sitting in Reims. So if the Allies want to re-secure or save Paris, they're going to have to take out this Italian stack here, which turned 1450, and that means they're not going to get to Rome. So their only shot now is Berlin. Is it Berlin or bust? That's what it appears to be. And if they capture Berlin and are able to hold on to it, they will win the game. So that is something to keep a close eye on. Now the British also, so why this is kind of interesting is because these American units here are able to get back on the American transports and come around and hit Western Germany. And the British, everything built, and then this whole fleet now is actually sitting here in Sea Zone 123, minus a few units in the American transport. So let's just say that, these units are here to protect, the American transports. But basically, this entire fleet is sitting in 23, and the Russians are running a blocker now in Sea Zone 16. And the British built a Wellington medium bomber, a tactical bomber, of another 5 armor, and 12 or 7 infantry ready to drop off in Western Germany next turn. And the Allies also, the Australians flew their medium bombers back to New England that were sitting in San Francisco. And the Canadians built a Lancaster bomber, which will be able to partake in the attack of, at least these bombers, in the attack of should they take a poke at Berlin. So the Americans did build 4 ground units in the east because they are able to rail them to the west coast. They're able to rail 4 units east or 4 units west per turn. There's an integrated rail network. And so 2 more rounds. This is round 13, so 2 more rounds to play. It looks like for the Allies, it's Berlin or bust. So really, Germany, they built some offensive units to try and take a poke at Stalingrad. They built, 3 tactical bombers, an Me-2 jet fighter. And we'll get a little bit closer here so you can see. Now that might have been a poor choice of a build. However, those units do not have to go back and try and take a poke at Stalingrad. All they have to really do is secure Moscow and now save Berlin. So whether or not they try and take a poke, now also these, if that happens, now it's funny how when the game starts to shift in a direction, the Allies go the other direction as well. So these paratroopers could also make their way towards Berlin if they choose. Now, the Allies have also started to gobble up the southern Italian territories, which there's not enough there to take Rome. It's just to be an annoyance. Now, the Italians are only making 14 IPP a turn. So, and also if Stalingrad is going to be safe, all of these aircraft could also make their way. There's 3 Lancaster bombers, which roll 3 dice at 4. So that is huge. So they might want to make their way back to Western Europe as well. So that's it, folks. That's round 13 in a nutshell. Stay tuned for round 14 coming up very soon.